Am I the a-hole for saying I'm proud of my drug addict brother? My little brother has been kind of a mess for a few years now. We had a difficult childhood with a lot of money problems, but I've been able to move past it while he's still really weighed down by the time our family spent without enough food or a stable place to live. Everything had gotten a lot better by the time we were teenagers because my parents both got steady jobs, but he stayed really anxious and angry and struggled in school and didn't have a lot of friends. He did manage to get into college, which was honestly kind of a surprise, but once he got there he started messing around with drugs and unfortunately it escalated into a serious problem by the time he was 20. Once we found out he was really struggling, my parents and my sister and I sat down with him and begged him to get help. He agreed to go to rehab but left after a week, and that pattern has repeated itself over and over again, and he finally admitted that he wasn't interested in getting clean. That's when I gave up trying to help him, but my parents couldn't let go. When he was 22 he stole a lot of money from them. I'm talking thousands of dollars, which is really significant in my family. After that my parents cut him off and no one in the family had much to do with him for a few years, but I got updates sometimes from a mutual friend I have with him that he wasn't doing great and had been living in shelters and on people's couches. Recently, though, that friend told me that my brother had voluntarily checked himself into rehab and had been there for a month and that he was really putting the work in this time. I was skeptical at first, but weeks and weeks passed and she kept having good updates. She even showed me a letter he'd written her from rehab where he talked about the mistakes he'd made in the past, including stealing from my parents, and a lot of stuff I never knew he'd gone through. It turns out he was a male prostitute at one point to get money for drugs, which he'd never told us. I know my brother so I could tell from the letter that he was sincere this time, and honestly I was really moved. We were close when we were kids and this letter gave me hope he could be in my life again. So I wrote a Facebook post saying how proud I was of him and how he'd managed to overcome so much, and how even though he'd caused me so much trauma I was hopeful that he'd really be able to make amends and be my brother again. It was a really nice post and tons of people commented saying how kind I was to forgive him and sending good wishes to my brother in his recovery. People were even sharing their experiences with having family members who were addicts and it was actually super heartwarming. I was feeling really good about the whole thing until out of nowhere I got a call from my brother from rehab. Apparently our mutual friend had showed him the Facebook post and he was furious. He said I had no business telling everyone that he was an addict, but literally everyone I'm friends with on Facebook knew already. He couldn't even argue that point. So then he said it was ridiculous for me to say that he'd caused me trauma because he'd never done anything to me, and the only people who had any room to be mad at him were my parents because they're the ones he stole from. But I love my parents and stealing from them hurt me too. He told me to F off and shut up about him and said once he's out of rehab he still won't want anything to do with me. I'm devastated because I thought we were going to fix our relationship. Now that I've tried to see it objectively I can see that maybe I shouldn't have put in the post that he sold himself for drugs, but I was trying to make a point about how he'd really hit rock bottom and how proud I was for him for climbing out of that. My parents are being evasive when I ask them about it so I'm not sure what to believe. Am I the a-hole for being proud of my brother?